Awesome song. Hold on, let me.
Yeah, the Joan Jet's
Oh,
great.
here's some of the questions. Why didn't more local bands get played on the end? This person said Tad, Mudhoney, Seaweed, L7, Super Suckers, Melvins.
That's a really good question. I really like that question because that was one of the questions I had on a daily basis. Why aren't we playing Tad? Why aren't we playing Green Day? Why aren't we playing... Absolutely. That is, and you know about this, Bob.
It's old radio. I mean, you got to play the hits.
That's right.
And that's
exactly right.
That's how you got number one.
That's right.
Which I hated.
Yeah.
Okay. Also, was the death of Andrew Wood more important to grunge than Kurt Cobain?
I think it was locally, and I think it was to the grunge aficionados. But I think, in the big wide world out there, once again, no, Kurt's death was bigger than grunge. Yeah.
Follow-up question to that, if I may.
Yeah.
Love Bone was amazing.
Yes.
Could Pearl Jam, of course, couldn't have happened. But that band was basically, and there's a few other changes, but Love Bone was Pearl Jam, essentially. I mean, that music with Stone and Jeff, and that would have got made.
Yeah. I guess your question is, why did that not happen? Yeah. Again, timing? Just putting the pieces of the jigsaw puzzle together. Yeah.
This next question is also related to timing. Is Norman single, and is he interested in maybe meeting somebody?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's not for our last guest?
By the way, I condensed that because there were 5 different is Norman single things.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Yes, I absolutely am. Yes.
Good to know. 8:39. Word of the day winner is on line 1. Hello.
Hello, Bob.
Hi, Gabriel.
How you doing?
Good.
Pretty safe to say that any music that Jody worships, I pretty much worship the same.
There we go. That's good. The word of the day.
Worship?
Worship was the word of the day.
All right, good job. Gabriel, congratulations.
Again, it could be an East Coast thing. I don't know.
It could be.
All right, Gabriel, you have a one-day Clipper Vacations gray whale watching excursion for 2, courtesy of Clipper Vacations. And don't forget to go to the KJRFM contest page to enter to win our grand prize, an overnight getaway to Vancouver, BC.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening,
Enjoy.
Gabriel. All right. Michael Harris is a Seattle-based contributing producer and wildlife specialist for ABC News. He's a wildlife filmmaker. His specials, his films, his documentaries have earned him 11 Emmys, 45 Emmy nominations in 15 different categories: producer, writer, editor, director, photographer, composer. In 2011, he was even recognized as an outstanding on-air host for the KOMO 4 primetime special, Giants of the Pacific Northwest. That would be the... it's not our football team, right? That's the Orca Whale.
God, you're so adorable. You are
for the
adorable.
Seahawks Super Bowl show, Michael is considered a one-man band, a digital journalist. He can shoot, produce, do the whole thing, and he's hired by ABC, CBS, NBC, and the acronyms just go on and on. He loves the orca whales. Michael Harris, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me.
Why do you love the orca whales? Just
my goodness.
Right to start with.
Well, they're so compelling. And I think what's drawn me the most to orcas is just how much they're like us. How much the equivalency of the orca world with human beings. I mean, you have marine mammals who are the most widely distributed of all mammals. They're in every
When you
ocean
say they're
in the world.
widely distributed, in other words, orcas can be found in Russia, which is where they're taking them for SeaWorld now.
Exactly. You just had 6 captures.
And so you're saying like humans are all over the world, but not many other animals are?
As far as distribution around the planet, it's, in the oceans, it's orcas.
Wow.
On land, it's human beings.
And yet we're overpopulating the planet, and they're endangered.
And they're endangered, exactly. And I guess so.
And their brains. Go about their brains.
Oh, big brains. Very big brains.
No, we're talking about orcas, not humans. Big brains, right?
Well, we're talking about Norman, I think.
Okay,
actually,
fair
there
enough.
we go.
That's a fair question.
Yeah, he's got
my
very
little
big
brain.
Haven't you seen his brain? No, it's they're just very big brained, very social creatures. They take care of each other. They have these extended families. It takes a village to raise a killer whale, if you will. And they're very much like us, like I said. And they live as long as us. I mean...
You mentioned that.
In the wild.
In the
they
wild,
live as long
80
as
and
us.
even possibly 100, which is about like
We have a couple out in the Puget Sound right now who are over 100 years old.
And how do we know they're 100? People, by their markings, they actually
Well,
recognize.
it's largely the work of the Center for Whale Research, which is one of our beneficiaries for the Orca Freedom Concert. Okay. And it's just the orca survey work that they've done. And they've extrapolated from, well, the one thing we do know about these orcas is that they stay with their mothers all their lives. And so
Their whole life.
Their whole life, exactly.
Like Greek people.
like my little brother, actually.
I was looking to you
Oh,
for
so
the
for every last born.
ethnic reference.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like my little brother. Yeah.
That's Greek people.
My little brother
There you
too.
go.
wedding.
And his little brother.
Yeah.
No,
Factual.
but and what they do is they just extrapolate. Well, this one's traveling with this one, and this one travels with this one, and they just sort of all add that up.
And we have for a while now, probably since the 70s, we've been keeping track of them in that great of a detail. We know how many there are every year. We celebrate when there's a new one born.
Absolutely.
And we also have whale watching, which is a big tourist attraction in our area. Is it good or bad for
is.
the orcas?
It's actually, I think it's very, very good for the orcas.
Okay.
Let me
The
tell
way
you
it's
why.
done- when it's
well,
done right.
because
Yeah.
you have 500,000 people that go out on these boats every year and experience these orcas. When they step off that boat, they are a constituency for conservation. They really are orca nuts. And even the people who are already orca nuts who come out and see these whales, they become activists. They become true advocates.
And
they
the
start-
boats follow strict rules to not
very,
interfere.
very strict rules. They have to stay 200 yards off, and that's 2 football fields.
See, now I always thought orca nuts was a term that they used for the Japanese whale hunters because it was a delicacy. Orca nuts. That's a different thing.
Well, yeah, actually,
I
I
don't
think
know if
the
that joke's
Japanese
gonna go
do.
over
Not
with
good
Mike.
joke. I'm trying.
Good
Trying to
Lord.
find boundaries.
We're not going to go on the Japanese thing, are
Okay.
we? Okay.
No, but
let's
that-
stay away from
But
Japan.
but
on
well,
this
hold
one.
on. Let's talk about that seriously though. The
Yeah, we will.
Japanese hunt. Do they eat orcas?
That's
Does
the funny
anybody-
thing.
Why are you trying to upset
nobody.
this guy?
Well, no, I'm asking a serious question because here's the thing: some whales are eaten as food, and it's native and it's traditional. We'll get to that. The orcas are beloved because they're beautiful.
It's more than that. And when you talk about First Nations, you talk about tribes and bands, particularly in the Northwest, they consider them people. They really do. They don't consider them, animals. They consider
And
them.
you consider them people, kind of.
Now I'm a little bit more, I guess, biological about it.
All right.
In that regard,
But as close to us as you can get. And be an animal.
And the thing is, and you asked me why. Well, I'm not a marine biologist. I just play one on TV. But I care about the oceans. I care about ocean acidification. I care about what we're doing to the oceans. And you're looking at a top predator. So this is kind of like a top-down way to join in the conservation movement, to start doing things for the planet. You look at this canary in a coal mine, if you will. You look at this top predator. How they're doing will tell you directly how our oceans are doing. And right now, the orcas out there in the wild are not doing well.
Anywhere they're not doing well.
Anywhere they're not doing well, but particularly here in the Northwest. And that is the primary reason why we're all getting together and doing this concert.
Right. Now, the orca, very much family oriented.
Yep.
When they get captured, and now we've stopped them from capturing them here. There are two of our Pacific Northwest orcas on tour, if you will. Anne was funny the other day. She said, I perform, I am an entertainer, but I entertain, I volunteer for the job. And they take these orcas and they put them in a cage. They're supposed to swim 100 miles a day, and they're put into a tiny cell where they have a psychosis, much like a human being would if they were in solitary confinement.
Absolutely.
Talk about that a little.
Yeah, well, think about it. I mean, 100 miles a day, and that's a conservative estimate. And they travel 100 miles a day. They have these very complex social groups. They are just, they have this vast expanse of ocean in which, and I should say too, is their eyesight is not all that great. They have basically the eyes of a dog, right?
Really?
Yeah, they're, and, the water out here is pretty murky. They live in an acoustic world. They talk to each other. They make calls. They keep track of each other. They find food through echolocation. It's all this beautiful acoustic world. Now imagine you put them in a concrete tank and it's an echo chamber. It's like somebody with the voice of Ann Wilson and putting her in a phone booth for all of her life, it really is. And what happens is, and what we know now and what science knows now, is it just is this gradual psychosis that happens with these animals. You see these orcas just circling the tanks, much like if you go to a horrible zoo and you see big cats, you'll see them circling the cage. That's not because they choose to circle the cage. It's because it really
It's not because
affects
they're trying to
them.
get their 100 miles
No,
in on the
man.
treadmill.
No,
That's what we were
no,
talking about the
no.
other day.
Yeah.
Dogs that have been held in small shelters for a really long time will circle, or dogs
That's
in
not a good
backyards
thing.
that never get walked and nobody ever socializes with them. They circle.
Well, and an example I would say is maybe an incarcerated person.
You go crazy.
They'll
And they
do
w-
their push-ups all day.
And they will live about
You know,
they
it's
will
not-
live about half their normal life.
Oh, half their normal lives. Right now, we have the oldest whale there's two whales that are the oldest that have ever lived in captivity. One is Lolita in Miami Seaquarium, one of ours from Puget Sound, captured in 1970, August 1970 off Whidbey Island. We have Corky, captured off
Pender, which is north of Orcas Island. For
Exactly.
anybody that
Yeah,
wants to
you're
know.
very familiar with Orcas Island. 1969. Those two are in their 40s, and they have outlived every orca.
Has there been an attempt? I know there was a movie called Free Willy, but has there been an attempt to sue and free these whales and get them released? Or
There's-
would it be bad for them at this point?
That's it would not be bad for them, but I'm under the belief. Well, I'll just tell you, there's a California bill right now, very, very topical right now, where it is now been pushed back for next year, but it would have banned orcas performing in captivity, would have forced basically SeaWorld and a few other parks
Right.
to release these orcas. Now, I'm under the belief that an orca captured in the wild should be released and can be released, and it's actually a lot easier than a lot of people will say.
Okay.
But but there's other people who say, well, the ones who are bred in captivity, the ones who have only known a life in a tank, have never actually had to go
Harder
out
to
and
say.
fish. Harder to say.
Okay.
And so the point is, though, is that we have to have this discussion. And the discussion is happening right now. And we are, we're putting a megaphone on that discussion with this concert.
All right, let's just say I'm in a Chevy Chase movie and I want to take my family to SeaWorld. I want to go to an aquarium. I want to see other animals. Are the seals? Are they unhappy? Are the dolphins?
The dolphins miserable? Yeah,
Does this apply to all marine?
Actually, if you don't mind, I could answer this because I was just out
Jody's
last
all
week.
over it, yeah.
Well, I was in Sarasota last week
Right.
visiting family, as you know, because I wasn't here and it was the worst ever. But the one thing that was a bright spot was in Sarasota, they have a really cool aquarium that the only animals that are in there are ones that have been rescued and rehabilitated and are eventually going to be set free. So we did see a manatee, we did see a dolphin, we did see sea turtles, and they're doing amazing work. So if more places could be like that, we'd be in better shape.
Yeah,
Anything to
yeah,
add?
and that is, there are really legitimate operations facilities, aquaria, who are rescuing these animals who are stranded and
P.S.
rehabilitating
manatees?
them.
Amazing.
And some of them, literally, some of them cannot be released.
Right.
They might have a liver disorder, they might be blind, there might be something, but there are some legitimate organizations and groups, facilities, aquaria, who are rescuing these animals and releasing them. I will give you an example, though, and you might remember this, Bob. In 2002, we had a little orca who showed up off of Fauntleroy Ferry.
Yeah.
Springer, A73.
I
right?
remember Springer.
Right,
He gets a
remember?
number, A73.
Right, and all of a
It's almost
sudden
like a
this-
Social Security number. We're going to tax these whales.
Well, it's funny. Graham Nash asked me to get him a J45 guitar, and I said, well, that's
A
the name of an
J40.
orca.
Wait a minute, there's a guitar with the...
That's a
with the-
6-year-old orca out here in Puget Sound, J45.
Oh,
anyway,
no kidding. So they should paint the guitar
They
with
should
the
paint
same
it.
as the orca.
An
Why
acoustic
don't you
guitar,
hey,
right? There you
is
go.
this an idea?
There you
Why
go.
don't you
Oh,
do...
God, did I say that? Sorry, Norman. Norman's grumbling over here.
Why don't we do orca guitars for musicians who support the whales, since there's so many?
We are, Bob. We
You are
actually
doing
have
that?
3 guitars on our silent auction with they're black Fender guitars with a custom white pick guard.
Okay, you already thought of
Well,
that.
I'm
Of course you
way
would
ahead
think
of you,
of
Miss.
that.
Way ahead
I'm
of you,
just
Mr.
doing the
Rivers here.
obvious.
Oh, I'm
here.
way ahead of you,
Okay.
brother. Okay,
Wow,
so
amazing
but
stuff.
let me finish it very quickly on Springer. But we had this little orca, 2.5
They
year
followed
old
him
orca.
they followed him
It was
on the
a her.
TV
Yeah,
news.
yeah,
or her.
yo,
Yeah.
big. I mean, it was all orcas all the time, and it drove everybody crazy. But top story every night. But SeaWorld wanted that orca.
They did?
Oh, they came up.
Didn't they
and
learn their lesson when
we
ran
them out of town?
Penn
We
Cove?
ran them
Yeah.
out of town in 1977. You
What do they
know,
think?
and
Seattle's only gotten
76.
more
right. They
liberal
came
since
back.
then.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, they came back. Anyway, but we got together and we said, you know what? Let's put this animal back. And the first question was, where is back? We discovered it was 250 miles north in BC. Well,
That's where his pod had
yeah.
wandered off to.
Yeah,
so was
yeah.
it like the movie Home Alone? This orca just wandered away? And
She just wanted. She was orphaned, so her mother died. She
Oh.
was very young, and she took a left turn where she should have taken a right turn. Just ended up
How'd you
250
figure
miles.
out? How'd you figure out it was 250 miles north? How'd you?
Access.
Good
Yeah.
question. Orca Lab, one of our other beneficiaries of the Orca Freedom Concert, they looked at acoustic recordings. We recorded her in the sound, and they compared it and determined acoustically That was the first clue.
So,
Acoustically.
by the way, they all have individual language.
Very distinctive
just like
cultures.
individual tribes
Well,
of human beings spread around the globe.
Exactly
Yeah.
right. They may speak the same language, but they have different dialects. It's much like you and Norman.
So, what
I
does
mean,
an orca
you know.
with an Irish accent sound like?
Well, it's like
Norman B. Do an orca with a British accent.
That's going to be it's just like a bit like this. Yeah.
well, he would, Bob, but that'd be a fake British accent.
yeah, 'cause
so,
he's-
you know.
he's not
That's
really
my
British.
wheelhouse.
So
Give me that
anyway,
one.
Those
but
are good, by the way.
And it's the Russian.
Yeah, well,
So-
just to close the loop on
by the
Springer
way,
came back.
I do that. It's comedic, but
Yeah, yeah.
to relate to human beings, they're like us.
Oh my goodness! And there's a lot of people who say how we treat animals and how we treat wild animals really says a lot about us. You know, and when we put them in tanks, what are we teaching them? Are we teaching them about orcas? Are we teaching them what a lion tamer might teach them with a chair at a circus? Right. Domination. And that's what we're teaching kids when we go to SeaWorld. Now, I don't want to knock on.
So it's
a parent-
actually bad for your kids to go to SeaWorld.
I don't want to knock parents who take. I have brothers
Say
and
it. I'm
sisters
gonna
who take
dominate
their
him and make
kids
them say it.
who have taken their kids to
Get the
SeaWorld.
chair, Bob.
I know
Give
you
him
don't
the
want to.
chair.
You don't want to hurt people's feelings.
You don't want to hurt their feelings.
You want to be
And
polite
we're
about
so
it.
lucky
But
here,
really,
Bob.
we don't need it.
We don't need it. They can come out to the Northwest, get on a Pacific Whale Watch Association boat, and see orcas in the wild.
Michael Harris, Norman B. Thank you, guys. Kiss the Sky, the Orca Freedom Concert with Hart, Joan Jett, Graham Nash on stage with Hart, many other great guests. All of the information is at bobrivers.com, but also go